Welcome to a special episode of the Peer2Peer podcast brought to you by Rayner. Today we're heading into the land of the free and the home of the brave, America, to talk about a topic relating to Rayner and the US market. Whether you're in the US or not, this is going to be an interesting topic because we're talking about money, a topic not often discussed openly. Specifically, we're going to be chatting about how to successfully implement the Rayner EMV lens into your practice in the US. To delve into this topic, I'm joined by the one and only Dr. Blake Williamson, President and Managing Partner of Williamson Eye Center in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Blake is a thought leader and lecturer in the fields of advanced cataract surgery, laser vision correction, and microinvasive glaucoma surgery. He's also a Rayner EMV user, of course, a podcast host of the ultra-popular Ophthalmology Off the Grid podcast, which I'm a big fan. Blake, welcome to the show. And you're in your secret lair. You're in your secret dungeon there. Can you give us a tour?
Yeah, this is my sort of special hidden place. I got three young boys, and so I needed a place to kind of get away when I'm doing a podcast with the very famous Ben LaHood. So this is actually taking you through a little tour here. This is kind of like a little TV room area where we kind of chill and watch, TV on the couch here. But over here is this bookcase, or so you would think, right? And so you go and you pull this Chinati book here, and this secret door opens, and it kind of reveals my little hidden office here. So I have all my ophthalmology books. This is where my little desk where I do all my Zooms. And this allows me to kind of shut myself in here when I need some quiet. And that way we won't be disturbed when we're talking about all these amazing Rayner IOLs.
Yeah, I love it. It's your bat cave. It's perfect.
Yeah, man. How
Hey,
are
Blake,
you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm unfortunately at the office, so a a little bit less exciting, a little bit less secret, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's good. It's good.
Hey, Blake, I was reading your bio, and there was an interesting point that you hold the record for the most cataracts done during residency. How many are we talking?
348. Yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
348. I was very proud of that 8 years ago. Yeah, it's funny when you grow up in an ophthalmology family, you're always trying to distinguish yourself from the very beginning. So you're not just your dad's son, right? And so I have a very prolific surgeon father. And so when we were putting my little thing together for the website, I was like, what have I done? In month one in the real world, nothing, right? So I was like I'm surprised that's still on there. But yeah, I did a lot of
No,
when I was a young man.
it's awesome. And I don't think you've slowed down. You're probably doing a phaco right now while you're talking. But Blake, thanks very much for coming along, and most importantly, thank you for being open about the financial side of things, because honestly, a lot of our colleagues don't like talking about it. And I know that we're all here to help people, but we also want to make some money along the side. So it's one of those let me help you, help me sort of situations. Um, can we start by talking about why you chose to use the Rayner EMV lens in the first place in your practice? Because it's a big, busy practice, and I imagine what lens you choose has a huge impact of whether you have a smooth ride or headaches. So, can you tell us a bit about your experience with the Rayner EMV?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I think I was looking for that, Bud Light version, to Budweiser of presbyopia, right? So we're all talking about that. The past several years, everybody's talking about EDOF and monofocal plus, and we know trifocals work very, very well, right? That's the Budweiser, but sometimes people don't need a sledgehammer; they need a fly swatter, right? And so I think that that's where this comes in. You have sick eyes, or maybe not sick eyes, but eyes that aren't optimal candidates for trifocality. Maybe you have those patients that, don't mind occasional readers. They just want to have, beautiful nighttime vision and minimal dysphotopsia, right? So we all have tons of those patients in our clinic. And so I think here in the US, we've tried to put other lenses out on the market that kind of fills that gap. And to date, I just wasn't really super enthusiastic about those options. While we could make them work, I just wasn't really, overly joyed to use them. And so I've been kind of searching for that. And then just in speaking to our colleagues in the UK, who've had a lot of experience with this, and you start to see, Rayner, RayOne EMV pop up. And here, abroad, OUS, Rayner's obviously oldest company IOL markets in the world, but here in the U.S. for whatever reason, it's not. It hasn't been traditionally part of the big strategics that we use in residency, for example. And so it was kind of like taking that leap of faith, and I've just been overjoyed with it. It just provides to me exactly what I'm looking for. And so, in general, those patients who are coming in who are hyperopic, who frankly are going to love any intermediate and near vision I
Yeah.
give them. It's kind of been my fastball for that. Any patient who comes in who has loved monovision, it's been my fastball for that. Any patient who's not a perfect trifocal or traditional EDOF, diffractive EDOF candidate, it's been my go-to for that. When I start talking about trifocality, and I mentioned the dysphotopsias, halo glare, starburst, and stuff that they're definitely 100% going to see for a while at night. If they start to back off, oh, okay, well, guess what? I have this other thing, behind door number two, right? And so when you start to kind of stack those up, you start to notice that the RayOne EMV is really an integral part of your IOL offerings. And so over the past several months, that's what I've been finding.
Nice. Is Budweiser the beer of choice in Louisiana?
No, no, no. I was just trying to make something up that people would know. I've been drinking a lot of pink wine lately. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of a rosé Chardonnay guy. I'm getting
Oh, you
older
definitely, yeah, you definitely need to come visit Adelaide. That's what we do.
now.
Uh, but like I come from a golden country where, an insured patient, there's no difference in price whatsoever. I implant monofocal, EDOF, monofocal plus, multifocal, no difference at all to that patient. But the US is a very different story. And I know that the EMV has been approved as a monofocal IOL. It's obviously got some advantages over some of its competitor monofocal IOLs that are truly monofocal. We're seeing good range of distance, some people getting all the way to reading even. What everyone would really like to know, I think, from this episode would be how do you effectively use this lens, giving your patients the benefits, but also keeping your practice running efficiently and being cost effective? How is it actually, how are the nuts and bolts working for you?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, what I learned from talking to OUS colleagues is that everywhere else in the world, this is labeled as a presbyopia correcting IOL. People in the US can think of it kind of like a Vivity, right? That would be kind of along par,
Yeah.
maybe even a Symphony. That was kind of the reference or the analog that was made for me when I started to investigate. I said, okay, so you guys are charging about the same amount, as these other presbyopia lenses, and everybody said, yeah. And so then I said, okay, well, what are patients really paying for here in the United States outside of an outcome? What are they? What's legal to charge for? And really, it all comes down to astigmatic correction. Yes, certain lenses are labeled here in the U.S. as a multifocal or as a presbyopia correcting lens with a specialty function, and others are given the monofocal for several reasons. They decided to go the monofocal route just to kind of get it here, in the market in our hands. But as long as you're, treating the astigmatism, as long as you are packaging in advanced preoperative testing, as long as you are packaging in things like aura, if you use that, as long as you're packaging the possibility for a free LASIK touch-up as needed, you can charge the same amount for this lens, even in the United States, as you do, other presbyopia correcting lens. The only important thing is that you are very clear in your documentation and with your billing and admin team that you are not charging this money for that lens in particular. You are charging it for the total package with the astigmatic correction, right? And the extra services you're providing, and the opportunity for the patients to have free, follow-up and a LASIK touch-up as needed. If you put all that in there together, then you can charge whatever you want. And so when you think about it like that, well, then I said, well, gosh, I mean, I'm charging this much for Vivity and for, Symphony. Why wouldn't I charge the same amount for the RayOne EMV? And having some discussion with colleagues here in the States, they're like, yeah, I think we're going to do the same thing. And so when you do that, number one, my patient's outcomes are better, than some of those other lenses. Certainly better than some of the other monofocal plus things that have been out there here in our market in the US. But on top of that, I end up saving a lot of money from the business perspective because the lens doesn't cost as much because it didn't get that presbyopia designation here in the States. They don't charge us, $1,000, $900 or whatever for the lens, right? And so every single patient, I was saving almost $2,000, in the presbyopia option three package that we offer. We have our different packages, and so that's how I've used it. It's been most importantly, it makes patients happy. I never really start out with the money ever. I never think about, okay, well, how can we maximize dollars on this patient? It's really
Yeah.
never that. It's always like, is this going to work? And is it going to make people happy? Because the worst thing it can do is take up chair time, and I'm having to deal with that 2020-ish J2 minus patient who's just miserable for whatever reason. It starts there. And if it also can make good business sense, well, then it's a home run. And that's what this has been for us.
That makes a lot of sense. And Blake, I don't mean to gloat when I talk about toric lenses, but when you talk about astigmatic corrections, just for people outside the US, you're talking about femto, um, sort of LRI type incisions.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, pretty much we package so the way we work, we have our basic cataract surgery, which is just the same way we did it in 1995, right? And I tell every patient, by the way, that's wonderful. That's great surgery. And if you don't mind staying in bifocals or contact lenses, we can do that. I start there all the time. I never hard sell the other two packages, but then option two and three, both include femto and aura. We still use Aura just to kind of double check everything. We're relying heavily on our preoperative calculations, but it's just nice to have one last little check that it's the correct eye, correct patient. It gives me peace of mind when I'm doing, 40 cataract surgeries in a morning. And so we still kind of use it for that. But both option two and three include Aura, include Femto, include post-operative touch-ups with refractive corneal surgery as needed. The big difference is option two package is all about your distance. So it will include femto AKs if needed for small amounts of astigmatism, let's say 0.75 or a diopter or so. It also includes toric IOLs, right? So anything that's needed to give you distance vision, we package all in there, same price. And usually charge about $2,000 per eye for that on top of insurance. And then option three package is all those things, the astigmatic correction, all that other stuff, but also a presbyopia correcting lens, right? So typically, I have my sort of trifocal EDOF mix and match of choice. That's kind of my fastball for people who are really wanting that J1 plus, vision. And then I have the RayOne EMV for, a sort of different category of patients.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of all packaged there. And that category is about 3,800 to 3,900 per eye. So it's more expensive for that presbyopia space. So that's kind of how we package it.
That's awesome. It's really awesome, Blake, that you're actually telling us the real deal, how it all works, because not many people would. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
When you
what people
when you're
know.
talking about the packages, Blake, do you not promise, but do you discuss a particular outcome, or is it more the particular IOL technology?
Yeah, we always avoid talking about technology, and patients are savvy, and they're on Chat GPT and all this, and they come in with these beautiful questions, and I always kind of deflect when they start talking about different technologies, and I say, listen, honestly, we have 20 different lenses that I could put in, and if I'm being honest with you, all of those lenses are pretty dang good, and I have friends all over the
Yeah.
planet that have great success with all of them, and so the worst thing I'd like to do is offer you the lens I'm going to use, and then you find another surgeon who hates that lens, right? And so it's just kind of confusing, and so that's kind of how I approach it. I don't ever really go. I mean, of course, they get the little cards, they know what lens they have, but it's not something that we hit on.
That makes sense. Like how has the EMV impacted your distribution of IOL use? Do you think that it's eaten into your true monofocal or your trifocal, or is it just taken over from another EDOF style lens?
Yeah, I think that it's really my monofocal is still my same old fastball that I've been using for years, and we love it, and it's an inexpensive lens, and patients love it. So it hadn't really I haven't been kind of creating that monofocal plus special category, but I should mention that many surgeons have done exactly that, right? So many surgeons instead of and this would be an opportunity or one choice you could make if you're listening to this podcast, and maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't know that it's going to give me that J1 plus every time, like maybe my trifocal does. So why would I package it in that presbyopia correcting package. I want to create another package, let's say a fourth package, where we have this sort of monofocal plus category. Maybe that's that patient that gets, this lens plus like a manual LRI, and you charge, X amount more for that, but it's not the huge amount that you'd pay for a true trifocal, J1 plus lens. You could absolutely do that. I know that people did that with other monofocal pluses when they came to market, a couple years back, and that's kind of how, a lot of the companies were sort of pitching, where this fits in. As we said, well, gosh,
Yeah.
this lens costs 3 times the amount of a normal monofocal, right? And so why would we do that if we're not going to be able to promise freedom from readers? And they all suggested sort of packaging other things and charging more. So you could do that and kind of create another package. Just for me, I think it's a paradox of choice thing. When you start
Yeah.
introducing all these options, the patients retreat to what they know, which is glasses or contacts, or they go down the street to the other guy or gal, and they do zero, multifocals and zero femto and all that stuff, and they say, oh, you don't need any of that. We're just going to do it like we did in 1995, and we're going to give you some glasses. Doesn't that sound good? And they say, yeah, I'll just do that. And it's like that's just so not the best thing for them. And so you got to be kind of careful with that. So I decided not to make another package.
The legend of American clinics, and especially high volume ones, is that you'll have a technician, an optometrist, an orthoptist, you'll have a financial discussion. There'll be a whole lot of people going on. Whereas I think outside of the US, there's a little bit, probably fewer staff potentially. Who actually has the discussion with the patient about the packages? Is that something you do, or is it something you train your team to do?
Yeah, so we have all these usually we have about 3 different touch points. I am included in the middle one. And then there's a decision moment. So all of this sort of builds towards a choice. The worst thing that we can do is, the first time someone comes in, give them a tremendous amount of information about something, a decision that's going to, really affect them every waking minute for the rest of their life, and say, and by the way, that's going to be $9,000. It's not, I wouldn't
Yeah.
like that. And so for me, that doesn't work. And so generally the way it works is we have once someone schedules an appointment, if they indicate that they are interested in freedom from glasses, or more importantly, almost always one of my optometrists has seen them first. So I have about 18 in-house ODs that work for me directly at Williamson Eye. I have about 220 employees overall. And so they've almost always seen one of my optometrists. And so when they indicate that they're interested, immediately they get an information packet about it, about the different lenses and different options with freedom from spectacles. At that point, whenever I meet them, I always myself just spend a couple minutes just talking to them and trying to get an idea of what they're interested in. Really, does it comes down to do they care about wearing glasses at all? If it's not a big deal, we go with option one. If they say, hey, I don't mind readers, I just want to see good distance vision, good nighttime vision, we go option two. And if they really hate the idea of readers, we kind of push towards option three. But the most important thing is I want to set those expectations myself about all of the potential side effects of whichever option they're leaning towards, right? So it's not
Yeah.
what you tell your patients, it's what they remember, is what I always say. And so I always want to know that I looked them in the eye and told them about certain issues with certain lenses. And I like to dramatically undersell. I don't just undersell and overdeliver, I dramatically undersell. And I can only do that myself. Once that happens, though, they go meet with my lens counselor. That's kind of like a final sort of touch point where she kind of goes over and reiterates what I've said. She does introduce the cost, and I do in the room as well. I let them know very briefly, high level, say, hey, listen, this is about what this costs. This is about the monthly cost. If you were to pay for this monthly, it's around $200 a month or $300 a month with no interest. They never ever ask me a follow-up question about money. Many doctors, as you've already correctly noted, are allergic to talking about money. But
Yeah.
basically, when that patient's in the chair with you, they want to know 2 things. Is this going to hurt? Am I going to be okay, basically? And how much is this going to cost me? That's what they want to know. And so no one can know better than me when I talk to them about it and give them that price, and if I kind of see them respond and they're shocked, well, immediately I can say, okay, well, let me understand why, and maybe there's a better solution that's more affordable for them. If not, what I'd be doing is kicking all these patients towards my lens counselor, and then they get sticker shock, right? And they say, "Oh my God, he didn't tell me this. I didn't know this," and they feel like it's been a bait and switch, right? And so it
Yeah.
doesn't create this trustful environment. And then they go down the street and where they're not offered any options at all, right? So yeah, for me, that never worked. For me, it was always about talking to the patient directly, giving them some very basic financial information. But then, right when they step out of my room, they talk to my counselor who goes into depth about not only the cost, but also the breakdown if they were to want to finance this and make it more affordable for their lifestyle. And so, and then most importantly, at the end of that third conversation with the lens counselor, they are not asked to make a final decision. We ask them all to go home. We always say the same thing. We say, listen, we want you to go home and pray on it, research it, talk to your spouse, whatever it is that you need to do to make a final decision. And when you come back for your A scans next week, that's when you'll meet with me one more time to make your final choice, right? So they love that they're not forced to make a decision right there. It also gives us another touch point, another visit to take better calculations, better
Yeah.
biometry. Let's say they're dry or something like that. We put them all on aggressive tiers during that week. So we love creating that decision moment a little further down the road, like a week later.
Maybe it's because I live in Australia where some people can't read, and I'm allowed to say that as a New Zealander. But I think that you see all these patients who's come in and they say, "Oh no, I don't read," and you say, "Okay, do you use your phone? Do you look at your watch?" I think there's a whole lot of people out there being given true monofocal lenses for distance, who afterwards are quite disappointed.
Yeah.
Do you strike the same conversation?
Yeah, I find the way I think about it is how many patients come to me after option two surgery and are wanting me to remove at least one lens and do option three. And that doesn't happen all the time, being honest, but maybe once a month, it's not nothing, and so like
Yeah.
once a month, I am taking out a perfectly functioning, perfectly good, monofocal IOL in the non-dominant eye, and I'm placing a trifocal in that eye to take them from J12 to J2, J3, just with the one eye. So yeah, I mean, I think that people are routinely sort of underestimating our new world that we live in with devices and smartwatches and all those things. So yeah, I'm not asking you if you like to wake up and read Charles Dickens. I'm asking you, do you hit the ESPN app on your phone? Are you ordering Uber Eats? And it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I am
exactly.
doing that. So
Yeah. And like getting into the actual use of the EMV lens, when I think of the perfect patient, and you alluded to hyperopes being one of them, I often think of people that do quite a lot of intermediate tasks because, standard monovision can sometimes leave that intermediate zone a little bit no man's land. They've got good distance, good reading. So I quite like using the EMV for that mini module, more of a blended vision, the true blend from distance to near. Who, apart from hyperopes, are there anyone that you really think when you meet them, you think, oh, yep, you're perfect. You are the EMV patient.
yeah, so typically a lot of my pilots, my tax attorneys, my engineers, people who have that sort of personality, who are allergic to any type of nighttime disturbance, but more importantly, um, are allergic to the overall contrast lost of true trifocality, right? So when I talk to patients about my presbyopia lenses and they're indicating they don't want to wear reading glasses, I say, cool. But just so you know, and we talk about the halo glare starburst at night, and it's very rare, it's exceptionally rare that I have it to remove or explant a trifocal or diffractive EDOF for halo and glare because I beat into their head so much, and because frankly, they don't drive that much at night anymore. These are older cataract age patients, right? More often than not, if I'm explanting, it's because they just don't like the quality of vision. So I'll say things like, "You're probably going to tell me that, street signs are kind of not very crisp like they once were until you're right up on them. You're happy with your 2020 J1 plus vision. That's great, but that's just in my little room here with this little Snellen eye chart. In your real world, you're having some challenges and you're looking at that license plate in the road in front of you and the letters, they're not double, but they have that ghosting there. And so all those little contrast things that you notice that it's not quite crisp. It's not like when you were driving down the road at 35 years of age. That's what trifocal lenses are, right? You have to just be willing to accept that, and some people just aren't, right? And so that's that type of patient where I think this can come in great. And I say, listen, you're going to have very crisp vision. You're not going to have these halos and starbursts at night. Now the trade-off is that you're not going to be doing circus tricks with your reading vision, right? I mean, so you might still need a light pair of readers for small stuff, but I bet you, 80% of your tasks or more, you're really not going to need anything. I mean, and what I do is I point to J5, J3 on the reading card, bonus points if there's a spouse in the room, and I show it to the spouse too. And I say, I'd be shocked if I can't get you here. And I point to J5, knowing full well that they're going to be J3 or better almost always, right? Many of them are J1 actually. So I like to build a little bit of micro mono vision, maybe minus 50 to minus 75-ish in the non-dominant eye. And that is true blended vision. It's not a -2 or a monovision approach. And so with that, I find that summation works quite well for distance and near, and these patients are doing pretty amazing. But any of those so-called picky patients, which I don't think are picky actually, they just want their questions answered.
Yeah.
All of them might be better RayOne EMV patients than true trifocal.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I sometimes show my patients something really tiny, the typing on the back of like a hotel shampoo bottle or something like that. And I say, see this? I can't see this. I'm not going to be giving you superhuman powers. You'll be able to read, but you can read as well as you can now. You're not going to be seeing the tiniest ants on the street. So I think, like you said, under promising goes a long way.
Well, and I think that also what you do, if you actually do show them a shampoo bottle, that's amazing because they're going to remember that, right? And so people who listen to this podcast, they hear us say under promise, over deliver all the time, but it's like, what do you actually do or say to make that happen, right? So for me, I have all these phrases and I use physical touch, right? So I'll touch their shoulder or touch their knee. Doctors don't touch their patients anymore, right? So when I make a physical contact, on a shoulder or a knee, it says, hey, and I give a short pause and I look him in the eye. It's like, oh, okay. So we're about to have a real sort of
Yeah, yeah.
transfer.
It just got
Yeah,
real. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
about to tell you something right now, right? And so, the phrase I use all the time is, listen, Mrs. Smith or Mr. Jones, here are the things that are good about this lens. Here are the things that are not so good, maybe. All patients will have a small list of things they don't like about their lens. But the good news is the list of things they do like is a much bigger list, right? And I'll say things like people will routinely tell me, Dr. Williamson, I'm not sure that I see perfect at every distance, but I see pretty good at all distances, right? And I say, you have to be okay with that. If you're not okay with that, I don't know that I'll be able to make you happy, right? So doing things like that, saying things like that takes all the air out of the room, and it gives you a lot more peace as a surgeon that you're going to deliver on what you're trying to accomplish for these folks.
And like, what do you think of outcomes so far? Like, are you getting happy patients? What do you think? Because I know that there was a little bit of talk initially about myopic outcomes. The A constant's been adjusted recently, which I think is a good move.
Yeah.
I've done the odd enhancement for someone that's come out a little bit too myopic for their non-dominant eye. Just did one today. He was
Mhm.
about minus 1.5, took him back to minus 0.75. Are
Yeah.
you getting good accurate results, do you think?
I am. It's been fantastic. I haven't had too much of that. I had the small handful of patients that I had that end up a little bit myopic ended up really liking it, So they didn't end up minus 50, minus 75 like I was planning. They ended up like minus 125, minus 150, but they were J1 plus, right? And like they were, whatever, 20/50 at distance and J1 plus, at near, and they loved it. And I was like, well, okay, if you don't hate that distance vision. They're like, no, that's what this other asked for. That's what we talked about. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's what we talked about. So, even though they ended up maybe a little myopic, they actually really enjoyed it. So I didn't have to go back and do anything. However, I think that's sort of lessened, to date. And really all the things that you've heard. I mean, hydrophilicity was a big thing. You've covered that in these peer-to-peers. I went back and listened to some of them. And that's just not a thing once you read about it. Over 14 million of Rayner's hydrophilic lenses have been put in market, since the 1990s, and there's literally zero confirmed cases of primary opacification. It's very important that to note that they had a very, 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 very small amount in secondary opacification from like other surgical processes going on, let's say a DSEC or DMEC. So certainly, people listening to this in the U.S., probably avoid using the lens in patient who has Fuchs dystrophy or who
Yeah.
thinks perhaps maybe getting a corneal transplant. That gas exchange can sort of dry out the hydrophilic lens. But other than that, I think any of those things have been way overblown. And it's been really a fantastic sort of transition at Williamson
And can I ask you to be a little bit of a psychic what do you think the future holds in the US for the category of monofocal plus EDOF lenses? Do you think it's going to be a change in categorization? Do you think that, even the EMV lens will be categorized differently in the future?
I think that from 40,000, I'm reading this book, Comfort Crisis. Have you read The Comfort Crisis?
No, no.
Yes. So it's just all about how in the past, we live in this air-conditioned, Uber Eats, overfed, totally comfortable, gel foam bed world. But that's only been around for about 100 years ish. Like in
Yeah.
1920, people were still struggling with stuff, right? And so certainly in 1820, there was all kinds of things. And the further you go back, the more people struggled and were uncomfortable, right? But the truth is in 2024 and beyond, people don't want to have any problems. They just don't. And so that's why I see this sort of hybrid EDOF, sort of category of IOLs ultimately being, where we need to go. In the absence of a truly accommodating, God-given lens that we can 3D print from some AI hell, really, I think that this category is what's going to get more and more popular. I think that they have other lenses, in their portfolio, and I'm sure that they're going to continue to bring those to the market here in the U.S. And I think they should. I think the more options we have, the better for patients. Um, but I think the biggest thing that we're looking forward is the toric version. I think we really need that right now.
And Blake, I was gonna sort of wrap things up. Is there anything else you wanted me to ask?
Yeah. How has it been having the second most popular podcast in ophthalmology after ophthalmology upgrade? Like, I know we talked about that when we had you on, but
It's
like,
been very dark because I'm always in the shadow
yeah,
of, your podcast. So
yeah,
it's been okay, but it's been a struggle.
yeah. Well, I mean, I just think you should keep on trucking, and nobody defines your worth but you, and we're praying for you. Um, no, man, I appreciate it. I know it's the end of your day there. I'm about to start my day now. I'm about to go do some LASIK surgery, and I love following what you're doing. I love listening to you. I learn so much every time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Blake. I should obviously get you back to let you get back to curing fakia, Louisiana. But to everyone listening, obviously thank you for checking in, and I'll see you on the next peer-to-peer podcast. I think it's been a great chat about EMV and how it can be financially beneficial, how it can be incorporated into your practice in the US. So, Blake, thank you for being so honest and open, because not everyone would be. And I'm still glad I live in Australia, apart from all the spiders, of course. I hope listeners can take away some of Blake's advice about packaging and making the EMV work for you too. So, Blake, thank you so much.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.